What is life? And what does it mean to be pro-life? And what does it mean to be the pro-life church? These are questions that I was faced with when I became pregnant at only 15 years old. So in Greek, life translated as physical life or psychological life or psyche. And finally, Zoe, abundant divine life. See, God knew that life based solely on physical and psychological could be painful, sometimes tragic and even cut short. It would be challenging and heartbreaking. And that is why Jesus came and offered us so much more, the eternal, divine, abundant life. His original design for us humans was to live the abundant life in communion with him. In John 10:10, Jesus says, I have come that they may have Zoe and have Zoe more abundantly. Our Bible begins with Zoe, when God places the tree of life in the Garden of Eden, and in Genesis 22, and it ends with it in Revelations 22, we are told, because of Christ's sacrifice, we again have access to the tree of Zoe. So being pro-life, it means yes, saving humans, and much, much more. We were created to thrive. As God's image bearers, in order to create a life-affirming culture for all, we must first have the right to life, to even hold the possibilities to experience liberty, and to even have a chance to pursue happiness. Let's unfold this. Family is God's idea. I had wonderful parents growing up in Billings, Montana. My parents loved each other. They stayed married. They raised us 8 kids in the church. So you can imagine how hard it may have been for me to tell my parents that I was pregnant at 15. So I didn't. I hid it. But I'll never forget, after my sister told my mom that I was pregnant, my mom said, I'm going to tell Dad when I pick him up from the airport tonight that you're pregnant. So I did what any responsible teenager would do at the time, and I called up my boyfriend, and he came to pick me up in the station wagon, and we went and hid in the church parking lot. At least we knew where to go. And after a few hours, I could hear my father saying, every baby is a blessing. We were Irish, so he would always say, every baby's a blessing. But I was so scared to go home, and when I finally got my courage up, I got dropped off, and we have a really long driveway. So I walked up that driveway, and it was like walking up a driveway of shame. And I put my hand on the handle of the door, and I was like, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, please, God, let my daddy be asleep. And when I opened the door, there sat my dad in his favorite green velvet chair, reading his Bible, and I just burst into tears. My dad walked over to me and he put his arms around me. And he said, Mom told me that you're going to have a baby. And all I ask is that every day that you will pray what's best for your baby. Whether you raise your baby, or whether you place her in adoptive arms. Now get to sleep, you have school in a couple of hours. Our family never missed school. So I believe that you all will agree that the world needs more dads like mine. Over the next few months, the love for my baby grew and grew, as did my belly. And the first day of 11th grade, I had a beautiful baby girl. And that year was so fantastic, living at home with my parents and learning how to be a mom and just building the bond between mother and daughter. It was so cool. And it was just a very joyous time. But then I kept on with the same boyfriend. And you may ask, did I learn my lesson? And the answer is no. Same boyfriend, same repeat trauma. Here I am pregnant again. My babies just would be over about 11 months apart. And again, I hid my pregnancy. And after a fight in the park with my boyfriend one night, I came home and I had really bad cramps and labor pains. And it got so bad, and I remember I was able to manage to get myself into the bathroom. And I miscarried a perfectly formed baby boy at 22 weeks. And at 22 weeks, this is the size of my little guy. And I called for my mom. I kept whimpering and crying for my mom, and she didn't hear me. But just about that time, my little girl from her crib cried for a bottle, and my mom ran in to get her and heard me crying. So she came into the room, and she said, "Lori, what's the matter? Are you pregnant again?" And I just was holding on to the curtains and crying into them, and I said, "Not anymore." And she was like, "Oh my God, get up." And I couldn't get up. The umbilical cord was still attached. And so after I delivered that, my mom sent me to bed. And I remember putting my hand on that doorknob to my bedroom. And there was a little pink princess on a plaque that said Lori's room. And I actually found it this week. I didn't feel like a princess. I went into that room and I covered my head and I covered my shame with those yellow flowered sheets. And I didn't talk about it again for over 2 decades, as most people have a hard time talking about pregnancy loss. This pain and this sorrow led me to my Savior, Jesus Christ, who was sent down from heaven as a baby himself to show us how to live, not without suffering, but with love and with hope. I was shamed by my church and kicked out of my parochial school. You may think I might have some church hurt, but actually it was the poor relationship with my boyfriend that left me feeling devastated and broken. But Jesus, see, he understood. As the child of the most unexpected, famous pregnancy, his teen mom, the Virgin Mary, and his adoptive dad, Joseph, they're the picture of what being pro-life in the church and why it matters. Jesus, as a fetus and as a toddler, he was marked for death. Mary and Joseph, they both faced fears. The angel Gabriel had to go to each one of them and say, "Do not fear. Do not be afraid." So what is needed are Gabriels to step into difficult pregnancy decisions with words of hope and hearts of compassion and gifts of help. God is looking for willing servants to be like Gabriel, so that men and women considering abortion, they may need to speak to them in order to choose life. And this is where you come in, church. Will you be the Gabriel in someone's life, someone who needs you? You see, it only takes one person or an angel to believe in you, to inspire you to believe in yourself. So will you be that person? After my teen pregnancies and raising most of my 5 kids, I began to volunteer at Alpha Clinics, helping pregnant moms and dads with their pregnancies. And I love teaching fetal development in the schools. Yes, science is on the side of life. When I go into the schools, it's just so exciting for them to know that the heart is beating just 3 weeks after conception. And the 11th week, the milestone, I've dubbed it the candid camera. It's where the fetus can begin to make facial expressions and to even smile. And all the kids just laugh hysterically because it's also the time when the fetus begins to pee in their mother's womb. It's pretty funny. A pivotal moment in my story was when I met a 12-year-old pregnant girl. There were 3 12-year-old pregnant girls in my town within the same month. I met with the 3rd girl. Let that sink in, 12 years old. I was 15. I had supportive family. This little girl broke my heart. At 12 years old, I just got a training bra, and I was riding a banana seat bike. I'd just given up on some Barbie dolls. 12 years old. She had a positive pregnancy test, and I shared my story of being a pregnant young girl as well. We talked about the development of her baby, and there was lots of smiles. But there was also lots of tears as she discussed the relationship with her boyfriend and having to tell her mom and dad. So we prayed. And after we prayed, I had to tell her that I too was going to have to call the police and call the authorities because she was underage and I was a mandated reporter. She sat silently and braced herself for the authorities to come. That night I went home and I was just grief-stricken. And I went home and I cried in my bed and I asked God, God, how can I help? And I went to sleep. And about 3:30 in the morning, I felt this nudging to get up and write. And I began to write, Choose Zoe, a story of unplanned parenthood and the case for life. Choose Zoe was birthed out of the heartache and a solution for teen pregnancy for that little girl and for every other little girl. Some of us here may have been wounded by sexual abuse or abortion. Well, the life that Jesus came to give fills us with care and compassion to walk alongside of people in these most difficult situations. The Zoe life helps us to deal and find strength as we navigate infertility, miscarriage, parenting, adoption, and abortion. Pregnancy clinics all over the world provide life-affirming resources, medical care, tangible necessities, and hope. And one of the best ways we can be a pro-life church is to celebrate life and link arms with local pregnancy clinics. I have witnessed with my own eyes the miracle of life, people in difficult circumstances who held on to Zoe as that Jesus came to give us. And their outcomes are miraculous and marvelous. I think of a young teenager who sadly was raped by her own father. This was a very difficult situation, but she told me that the baby inside of her actually kept her from taking her own life. Her father went to jail. She gave birth to a beautiful baby son, and this little boy was adopted by her pastors. And she's promoting life, changing perspectives, and giving a clear message to the world that there's always hope, and by embracing the abundant life that Jesus came to give. And it's just incredible how a seemingly hopeless situation could turn out so positive in so many ways. The pastors have a new little boy. The mom is able to build herself back up and remain in school and get an education. And she's being loved at the home where she lives. See, teenage parents, they have potential like I have to rise above my beginnings. I chose to parent, but some, like her, make the noble option to choose adoption and place their child in a forever family. My life was not over. My life was just beginning, and I've never once regretted having my baby girl. Motherhood is actually my epic accomplishment, and my 11 grandchildren are my greatest joy. So my future was not ruined. It's here, and I have a fulfilling life with 5 amazing grown children and the 11 grandchildren. So the struggles, like I was a single mom, and the struggles that myself and my children endured, like poverty, single parenting, they actually empowered us to persevere, to care about our education, run businesses, become published authors. Most of my children have degrees, even masters, and leading ministries, also volunteering. Upwards of 90% choose abortion for societal reasons. Here's a few: relationship difficulties, lack of finances, not wanting a baby or wanting to pursue their education. We do not solve these problems by taking the life of an innocent baby, leaving a mother wounded and family members grieving. One of my own daughters had a secret abortion in high school. I wouldn't have chosen abortion for my daughter as many parents, even within the church, do by saying, you have your whole life ahead of you. But I ask, what kind of life then are you suggesting? One of hopelessness and grief from aborting a baby? We can do better than abortion. In 25 states, our children are able to get an abortion without our knowledge or consent. And the schools have to allow our children to leave for these appointments. And by law, they cannot let us know that our child was not in school. This is criminal. At 12 years old, our little girls, it's illegal for them to have sex, but they can go in as a minor, as a 12-year-old, and get an abortion without their parents' help or consent or advice. You see, Jesus is our answer. Abortion is made out of scarcity, and choosing life is made out of abundance. Jesus is our answer. He's our only hope. He is love, and he is what the world needs. So we must learn to see every human being made in the image of God through those eyes. Parents, pastors, and leaders, this is your opportunity to disciple someone during the toughest, difficult times of their lives. It's your chance to proclaim life in the lives of countless women and men who have chosen abortion. My daughter received post-abortive healing, and so did I. And there's something so good about our God. It's the way he redeems our life. So both my daughter and myself serve in a church ministry called A Movement of Love, God's movement of love towards women and men to be heard and to be healed from abortion. The gospel-centered solution creates victory in our lives. Many people say that I'm not for abortion, but I don't want to take choice away from others. Well, life is not a choice. It is a gift. Life is a person. His name is Jesus. Upwards of 70% of women claim that they were going to church at least once a month during the time of their first abortion, which means that they are sitting in our congregations hoping to receive healing and forgiveness. You see, John 10 tells us that the thief comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And Satan would like nothing more than to wound people created in God's image. He would love to destroy the family, destroy the unborn, and to defame the name of Jesus. Church, many in the congregation, they grieve abortion and they grieve pregnancy losses, miscarriages. The world must know that the church is a safe place to come for healing. And we must learn to see every human being through the eyes of God. You see, I dream of a day when a young girl is not shamed by her family, her school, or her church. I dream of more churches linking arms with pregnancy clinics. I dream of a society that doesn't think that the solution to teen pregnancy is abortion. Zoe, the word is powerful because it's filled with action. And I'm hoping that each one of you will take up the mantle to proclaim life. We can all do this by sharing our own story. We can save a life by sharing our own story. Isn't that encouraging? And the word declares that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So Jesus brings the blood and we bring our testimony. We share our stories. We speak up for the voiceless. We conquer abortion by establishing that culture of life in our homes and in our churches and in our places of work and schools. We celebrate life by sharing these personal stories. If you were adopted, or if you've adopted a child, then you would be the perfect one that someone would go to if they were considering placing the baby for adoption, or if they were considering adopting a child or becoming a foster parent. You would be the one to inspire them. So as we talk about pregnancy loss, miscarriage, even infertility, it gives a hurting person an opportunity to get the care that they need. Speaking of infertility, when I was writing my book. It's not even talked about in the church. I found very little resources, but it can be like, 1 in 4. And to know that someone is not coming to your baby shower because they're wishing to God that they could get pregnant. We need to be sensitive. And possibly there would be someone there that had a solution for them medically, a doctor, or maybe through adoption. So if you had an abortion, you're also the perfect person to help someone get their healing or to stop someone from walking down that same devastating road. In 1983, President Reagan instituted the Sanctity of Human Life Sunday. Many churches, this is the only opportunity that they take to address the life issue. So we celebrate on the sanctity of human life, the sanctity of every human being being made in the image of God. It happens every January, marking the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. So take heart. The pro-life ministry is changing hearts and minds. Young people, they know the truth. They've been raised with an ultrasound picture of their little brother or sister on their fridge. So they understand. And the U.S. is flipping a culture to life. These outrageous laws of late-term abortion and even infanticide in the news have turned public opinion. And 8 out of 10 people want abortion to end or at least be restricted to the first trimester. The church can no longer be silent. We have been duped that being pro-life is political, but it is a gospel issue, and we cannot be silent as our most vulnerable beings, our most vulnerable human beings, the tiny fetuses, the babies in our human family are being destroyed. And how can we be the pro-life church? To defend the right to the unborn and to oppose abortion? By choosing a Zoe life. As a society, we know we can do better than abortion. And in seemingly hopeless situations, there's a superior solution to ending a life. But first, we must change hearts. So how do we change hearts? We do it by offering hope. That is what people in crisis want. They want hope. Hope's an essential ingredient to the human life. When people lose hope, they lose the will to live. Without God, unplanned pregnancy can have a hopeless end, but with God, it can have endless hope. Abortion has destroyed 60 million American lives since 1973. The Roe v. Wade landmark case legalized abortion. Many made this decision out of haste, legality, coercion, lack of knowledge for fetal development, or fear. I have both witnessed men and women, young and old, who regret their abortion. They've unraveled their painful experiences of their past to find forgiveness and new hope for their future. We have been deceived, but now we know the truth, and our eyes are open to that truth. There is no line drawn in the sand anymore. Abortion is the gravest injustice of our time. Will you sit back today as 3,000 babies, United States of American babies, are being aborted, or will you stand for life today? God is pouring out his movement of love towards women who have had an abortion and leading them to freedom. If you are sitting in church today and you are grieving with an abortion, I want you and the world to know that God is not mad at you. He is madly in love with you, and there is absolutely nothing that can keep you from the love of God. And now a presentation regarding the sanctity of human life. This one BB represents 3,000 lives, 3,000 U.S. American lives lost to war. And according to the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs, this is the U.S. death toll of American lives in the U.S. Civil War. 618,222 lives lost. We mourn you. World War I, 116,516 lives lost. We mourn you. World War II, 405,399 lives lost. We mourn you. Vietnam War, 85,000 lives lost. We mourn you. And now, the war on the unborn. Abortions, 60 million since 1973. United States of America lives lost to abortion, leaving behind families to mourn. We mourn with you. To the American church, it's time to rise up. Abortion is the gravest human injustice in our time. And now that we know the truth, it's our responsibility to do something about it. It is our responsibility to stand up and to care for the most vulnerable of the human family, to stand behind our young girls when they come to the church and they're already pregnant, to stand up by adopting and taking care of the foster children in the world, and to share your story so that people who are grieving loss of motherhood and fatherhood, grieving pregnancies lost to miscarriage or stillborn or abortion, or the men and women struggling from infertility. It's time for us to rise up and to speak for the voiceless, to speak for the unborn, and to walk outside of our church walls and to be able to help the community and help those who are in pain. Pregnancy, sexuality, it's something we're all faced with. But we must remember that family is first God's idea, and every trial that we have, He has a solution. And His solution is named Jesus. Jesus, the one that came to give us that Zoe life. I pray that you walk out of here embracing Zoe with all your heart.